Hello, Tom Levecchia here with the latest edition of the Armchair MBA. Today is another quick Mafia snack that I prepared for you. Today we're going to be talking about Lastida. Lastida, which translates in Sicilian as the star, is known as the Fifth Mafia. They're an organizational group or organized crime group in the southern central part of Sicily. I'll get to as to why and how they came to power. Lastida, again, which means star in Siciliano, is a kind of like an offshoot group of Sicilian Cosa Nostra. So Stidda, which are the men that are in Lastida, many of them actually get a star imprinted on their hand in between their index finger and their thumb. So some people are like, well, you know what? Lastida means star. Those that know Italian say, you know what? Doesn't Stella mean star? Well, my Sicilian friends, who I love to death, and it took me a very long time to understand the Sicilian language. I'll give you an example. In Italian, you say come sei bella. Bella means beautiful, right? How beautiful. In Sicilian, you say come sei bella. Bella is bella, right? Another example, not only do they change the words in terms of some of the letters, maybe D with L, they also use different words, which further complicates the Sicilian language. Okay, so if you work, you say lavore, right? To work. In my dialect, in Napoleon dialect, you say fadiar or fadica. That's like super Napoleon, right? But if you say it in Sicilian, it's teravicchia. So, like I said, so Lastida means the star in Sicilian language, and Stidda are the men that join Lastida. Okay, just give you some context and background. Okay, so Lastida started out as an offshoot group from the Cosa Nostra. Now, they typically work in more of rural areas. The Palermitani or people from Palermo have a grip and will continue to do so. Obviously, Corleone, which is another area that's well known because of Totorina and Bernardo Provenzano. But there's other areas. If you look on the bottom right, or my bottom right, your bottom left, Catania, Siragusa, and Ragusa, Agrigento as well. These are more rural areas that, although have been controlled by the Cosa Nostra, tend to be less controlled in terms of numbers and strengths. So after the war, the Second War, which was in the 80s, and one of the perpetrators of that was Giuseppe Gallo. Now, he was a powerful boss on the Coppola, as well as Totorina and others from Corleone. Gallo wasn't from Corleone, but Gallo and others started the Second Mafia War, took over from the Palermitano, well over 100 dead, actually hundreds dead in the war, cops, Sicilians, judges, politicians, and the like. So what that did was they kind of went away from the honored society or only di onore and honored men and gravitated towards a more ruthless enterprise. Ergo, the Corleonesi essentially took over the Palermitani, and they had people like Miguel Greco and others to put on the Coppola. They actually excommunicated, if you will, Gaetano Badalamenti, who went over to Brazil, and he's the one who set up the pizza connection case here in the U.S. That was with the Bananas. The Bananas and the Gambinos have historically worked with the Inzarellos in Sicilia, the Spatolas and the Gambinos out of Sicily. So these networks migrated over to the U.S., but now we're going to pack that another day, and we're going to focus on Lastida. So a lot of these guys were disenfranchised. They really didn't feel a connection to the Corleonesi. They weren't in Palermo. So they decided to create an offshoot organization. The offshoot organization, again, is called Lastida, and the men in it are Stidda. I just want to show you the map again in Sicily, why this is important. Again, Catania, Siragusa, Ragusa, Agrigento. These areas are not, don't get me wrong, are strongholds of Cosa Nostra, but they are not the only mafia there where Lastida kind of came in. The membership is a little different. There's no code of honor. It's kind of like the Camorra in a way. They're less honorable. There's not a code of honor. There's not a code of ethics. again, they kind of have groups or bands and clans, if you will, but they don't have a unifying cupola. They don't have an organizational structure. They kind of operate in between. If you, for example, you have Nadragada, which is probably the most well-run organization, and you kind of have a street gang, traditional street gang. These guys are just kind of a little lower middle of how they run their business. There's no centralization, and then interesting enough is in certain areas they work with Cosa Nostra, and they'll partner with Cosa Nostra on different local events in terms of usury, obviously gambling. They're big into prostitution. Their membership is believed to be in the ballpark of 2,000 members ish. Not a lot is known of Lastida. Stuff that's been said about Lastida to magistrates and to the Italian government has typically been pentiti of Cosa Nostra who spoke of them, but not many Lastida pentiti. If anybody knows, drop a link below. I have not known of anybody who was made with Lastida, had a star, who flipped, but I could be wrong, but I did not find any in my research. So sure enough, though, after the second war in the 80s, the Second Mafia War, Lastida started cutting in. So they took on Cosa Nostra head on. I think Cosa Nostra lost about 500 guys. It's believed that Lastida lost as many as 1,000 guys. I don't believe that, because having a 2,000 membership, if you will, kind of decentralized, losing half your guys over the war, I don't buy it. It might be exaggerated by the media, but nevertheless, they took on Cosa Nostra head on. It got to the point that although Cosa Nostra could have eventually wiped them off the map, it just became too difficult. So they sat down with Lastida and they carved out territories. So now this is where it's really important. Areas like Gela, which is a principal area for was for Cosa Nostra, but migrated over to the Stidati. Now, when the war was finished, Lastida started operating, and when there was a killing, they typically blamed it on Cosa Nostra. For example, Rosario Levatino was an important judge. He started investigating a lot of the important Stidati. He was killed, which was a really important judge in Sicily, and actually to the point where the Pope, I don't know if he canonized the judge, but definitely they call it beatified. I don't know the Italian word beatified, or maybe canonized in a way. Not meaning made a saint officially, but recognized this judge and then put him on the world stage for all the worldwide Catholics who appreciate this guy's legacy. And he was killed by not Cosa Nostra, but a Stidati. Now, there is a belief that he might have been investigating the Stidati on behalf of the Cosa Nostra, but that is yet to be proven, just a rumor. So how are these guys? What are they doing? How are these guys? Okay, much more violent than Cosa Nostra. Maybe not as violent as a Corleonesi. Those guys kind of take the cake, but these guys are not against car bombings. They're not against killing family. Again, there's no honor. There's no code. Just kind of like a more organized street gang, but again, not as elaborate as Dragada or even Cosa Nostra for that matter. What businesses are they in? Again, so as the Corleonesi, and allegedly a lot of these guys hooked up with the Gambinos, earlier the Bananas, but the Gambinos, the Cosa Nostra has always been big into heroin and construction. They deal with the big business, the building of skyscrapers. If you ever go to Palermo, there's always building, there's always money coming in, especially now, God knows with the pandemic. So they work on big business, right? They also focus on national and international drugs. For a while, the Sicilians controlled the heroin market in Europe and part of the U.S. Still have a big control of the heroin market in Italy. They got into coke, but they got in late. They allegedly get it either from the Camorra or from the Ndrangheta. So they work as a distribution level, not street level, but distribution level. But got out of the international game for coke because they kind of got X'd out by Ndrangheta. But now, how does the Stidda operate? They operate a lot like the American LCN. Local usury, local drug distribution, local prostitution, a lot of the small ball blocking and tackling that criminals do that are in organized crime, but that the Cosa Nostra walked away from. So that's where kind of Lastida found their sweet spot, and that's how they became very powerful. They allegedly do close to $1 billion a year. Okay. Why is Lastida important? Lastida is important is as the they kind of rise through the ranks and increase their power. The mafiosi focus on the bigger things, which tend to get involved with U.S. again distribution, U.S. organized crime. There are factions of Sicilian men that are in America. Generally, can't be made by both families, but there are guys that are Sicilian made that are in the U.S. and there believes to be a resurgence of Cosa Nostra in the U.S. We will unpack that for another day. But in terms of Stidda or Lastida, they operate primarily in Italy. Obviously, this is Sicily, a little bit mainland Italy, and there appears to be some cells in Germany. My research has showed I have not seen any Stidda in terms of any presence in the U.S., New York, etc. It seems to be indigenous to Sicily, and it seems to be not as big of an organization as Cosa Nostra, but again, a local to Sicily and kind of taking over a lot of the local business. So recently you heard of a mafioso got caught. There's an older gentleman leaning. His name is Giacchino Gamino. He was spotted on a Google Earth map. They were kind of closing on him anyway. And he was a Lastida mafia boss that's been in the run for a number of years, was on Interpol Most Wanted. He got picked up by the police, and it was aided by being on a Google satellite that you easily find on Google Maps. So Mike Francis did a piece on that, and that guy was not a mafia member. I didn't watch Michael's piece, but hopefully he brought up that member was not a Cosa Nostra member, but was a member of Lastida. Now, they are growing in numbers because there's a lot of guys that are younger, don't have many rules, don't have much respect. Maybe they're just not as disillusioned as a Cosa Nostra in the honor system are like, you know what, we're just criminals. We're proud to be criminals. We're street guys. And that's where Lastida seems to grow. So that is my little mafia snack that I prepared for you. For those mobologists that like it, give me your comments below. Go down the rabbit hole of Stidda. It's definitely worth it. There's not a ton of information you're going to find out there. So that's why I'm going to prepare a little mafia snack. And then hopefully at a later date, I can unpack it and do a full episode for you. I want to give a shout out to a channel that I really love and appreciate called Deeper Globalism. That's where I get a lot of my shows, and they do a great job covering Lastida, Comora, Italian Mafia, and so forth. Shout out to Deeper Globalism. I'll put a link below. Sub to their channel. I don't know why that channel is not bigger than it is, but for those mobologists that really have an affinity for learning more and more and more about La Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, and so forth, it's the channel to watch. Why do I get so interested in the Italian side of the mafia? Tom, just give me the American LCN stuff. Well, when Italy, in terms of organized crime, sneezes, America catches a cold. To this day, believe it or not, there's a lot of relationships through there. A lot of the heroin still comes through there. There's a lot of coke that comes through there. There was a case in 2019 when Dragata was partnering with the Gambino family. Check that out. It was just a small cell, and it was just the tip of the iceberg. So eventually I'm going to start to uncover the links of the current Cosa Nostra through the current Italian Mafia without ending up in the trunk, of course. But with that being said, I appreciate you watching. This is your latest Mafia snack, the fifth family, Lastida, and thank you for watching the Armchair MBA. Please like, subscribe, and share with a like-minded friend, and I'll see you next time.